Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the TriStar Sports Show. Jamie and I are here back again for episode 21. Jamie, we're
Yes,
coming
sir.
off of a let's say a rough weekend, to say the least. Tennessee drops the big one in Athens against the Georgia Bulldogs last weekend, 31-17. Not what we wanted, not what we hoped for, not what we expected. I think as all Vol fans, a little bit in the back of our mind, we thought this was all going to be a possibility that we just fall flat on our face and lose like we have many times in the past. And reality has hit. That little evil voice in the back of our head was correct again. Jamie, what do you think about the Georgia game?
I thought it was a great first half. I mean, probably the best offensive first half we've had in a long time. Came out and scored on the opening drive, which I don't know when the last time we had done that was. I mean, defense didn't play. I mean, on the box score, it'll tell you they didn't play the way they had been playing in the first half, but we knew that it was a better team than who we had played, and it was in their place, so you got to expect their offense to be dialing or dialed in. But I don't know, just came out flat in the second half. Couldn't ever get the offense going. It was 17-24 for a really long time though. We were not out of the game until very late, till right there at the end when they punched it in. But I don't know. It's disappointing to say the least. I thought we had a decent game on both sides of the ball, just not good enough on either, really.
I mean, this might be a hot take, and maybe people don't agree with this. I think we lost this game in the first half. Um, if you really look back on it, we forced Georgia to punt three straight times to start this game, and yeah, we went up 10-0. But you would love, so you go and drive, you score on your first drive, everything's going great. You force another three and out or punt, whatever it was, and Boo Carter had an opportunity to take it to the house, and we missed the last block on the punter, which is fine. It happens. You got good field position. But when you start the ball on Georgia's side of the field, you got to do more than a three and out and a 52-yard field goal. I mean, I'm glad we still got points out of it. But when you're playing in that environment on the road, you need to capitalize early and often. You actually saw this in the 2022 game against Georgia. I believe they fumbled like on the first drive of the game, and all we could settle for was 3 points.
They
Like when
fumbled
you
on
have,
like their 5 yard line, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, it was something crazy like that. It when you have an opportunity like that to absolutely silence that crowd, you have to do it. And obviously, when I was sitting there, I was still happy we were up 10-0 on the road. There wasn't much to complain about. But looking back on it, it's differences like that in games like this where who knows what happens if you go up 14-0. That means you're up 21-17 at the half rather than 17 all at the half. But, hindsight's 2020. If you told me going into that game that we would have put up 17 first half points, I thought we probably would have had a very good chance to win the game. We still
Right.
did have a good chance to win the game, like you said. It was 24-17 for. They scored early in this, or they scored with like what was it, 5 minutes to go in the third quarter or something like that. And I don't think there was another point until 2 minutes to go in the
Yeah.
fourth. Almost a
I
whole
mean,
quarter of just
nothing.
nothing. A lot of punts back and forth. Like you said, defensively on the box score it doesn't look great, but watching the game, they didn't play awful. Um, they didn't. They did. I would say they did you enough.
There was a
They
lot of
the only thing
bailouts.
that's what I was gonna say is the only thing you can really complain about on the defensive side of the ball is hurting ourselves with penalties, whether that be a good call or bad call by the referee. That's up for subjective opinion, but obviously there was the questionable turnovers throughout the game, if they should have been fumbles or not fumbles against us. But they didn't go our way. It kind of did feel like we just couldn't catch a break. It was
Yeah,
to win a road game like that. I feel like you kind of need the ball to bounce your way a couple of times, and anytime it did, it got reversed. So you didn't really. That'll take a life out of a team, you know. But all in all, not a horrible performance. I mean, you can't sit there and say we got absolutely beat bad. I mean, we lost. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
I'm sure in the eyes of the committee, it doesn't. I mean, the box score probably looks a lot worse than the eye test if you actually were watching that game.
I agree. That last touchdown really helps them out, in my opinion.
It does. I mean, if you want to consider 14 points a blowout, that's fine. But that means Ole Miss blew out Georgia. That means Georgia blew out Texas. That means, I mean, 14 points is not a ton. So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know. I didn't
I mean,
think
Dylan's,
Samson. Yeah, Samson had a good game. I guess our
yeah, he's still
worst.
at 100, right?
Yeah, he had 101 with a touchdown. I guess the worst part of our defense was our passing defense. We let up 350 yards through the air. But I don't know. I felt like what hurt us a lot was Beck's running. I mean, he only had 3 rushes for 32 yards, but those 3 rushes seemed to always be at the worst times. I mean, like times where you think you had him dead to rights, and there goes Beck. Not nobody accounting for him.
I mean, it was plays like that extended some of these drives. I
Yeah,
believe he scored on that one run up the middle,
yeah.
which I think there was a holding call.
Before that, defensive
Uh,
holding to get him into.
yeah, on the play before it, there was a defensive holding, and then there was an offensive holding that wasn't called on the same play. I know a lot of people were angry about that because there was a blatant hold right up the middle, and they only called one side of things. And I mean, it's just the little things. I think one of his runs, we pretty much had him at the line of scrimmage, like taken down, and he just ran through a soft tackle and took off for a nice gain. I want. I mean, maybe people are going to call us crybabies, but if this was on a neutral site field or in Neyland Stadium, I think this game does not look the way it did. I don't think we were outclassed or outperformed, but I still think Tennessee as a program is not quite there as far as the elite programs in college football. I think we're right on the brink of it. But until you win a game like that, I can't sit here and say we're an elite program.
Yeah, looking further into the box score, 5 sacks does not look great either. I mean,
No.
our offensive line played good on the rushing side of things. I mean, Samson had over 100 yards, like we said, but as far as pass pro goes, I felt like Nico Nico was being. I mean, Nico had 12 carries, and I'd say majority of those were. I mean, if not all of them. No, I don't know how many designed runs we called for Nico that game. A lot of them were him just running for his life back there.
Yeah, I think Georgia did a good job of designing certain blitzes and different stunts to try to throw us off balance a little bit. From what I remember, I don't know how many sacks were in the first half, but it might have only been like one, maybe two. I think that was a big reason in the second half why we just couldn't get things going. Because all in all, if you go watch early part in the game, I was actually very, very pleased with how composed Nico looked going into this game. I mean, his
Hmm.
biggest road game of his career, biggest game of probably of his career at this point. I mean, he came down and scored on the first drive, hitting his short passes. I think Georgia did a good job of adjusting at halftime. First half, it seemed like they were playing a little bit off the ball, trying to prevent the deep shot and just let us play underneath. But if Nico's hitting the underneath routes and we're running the ball fine, we can score very easily. And I think they did a good
Right.
job in the second half trying to probably bring the guys up a little bit and throw a little more pressure at him so he doesn't have time to throw it deep. And I just don't think we made the correct adjustments. And I think right now, I hate to say it, but that's the difference between Kirby Smart's 2 national championships and Josh Heupel's 0. So
Right.
I'm not
I
sitting
agree.
here and saying I'm mad at Heupel or I think he's bad or any of that. That's not what I'm trying to get to. But Kirby has coached many of these big games, and Josh Heupel has not. And Heupel needs one of these to go his way, one of these road big games to go his way. We've done it at home, don't get me wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
I still think we're
Got
a
to win
little
on
bit
the road.
away from being elite, like I said. Um, as far as playoff goes, we're not dead. We are not dead yet. Not a lot has to go our way to get us in, but we do not control our own destiny. So,
Yeah, and that's a frustrating part. Um,
I mean, what's
one,
confusing is ESPN has us at, I think, 83% chance of making the playoffs if we win the next 2 games. But they have us at 60% right now, but they have us likely to win the next couple games. It doesn't make any sense to me on why the percent goes up so much in 2 weeks if we win out, but whatever.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's factoring something in. Only other thing I have to say about that game is, I mean, we went into a big game on the road and got beat. I mean, I've always said that the steps to building a program is first you got to win the games you're supposed to win, and then after that you got to start winning a couple games you're not supposed to win, and that's how you get to be in an elite program. Right now, I think we're at that kind of crossroads where, for the most part, aside from, I mean, you have your hiccups, your Arkansas, whatever. We've won the games we were supposed to win this year. Now it's time to start going in and winning some of the games we're not supposed to win, and that's what's going to have to happen for us to get over that last hump.
I mean, just sitting here thinking about it, it just dawned on me that we went up 10-0 and then got outscored 31-7 the rest of that game.
Yeah,
That can't happen if you want to win games like that. Um, I mean, we're just repeating ourselves here, but I really don't think defensively they did so bad that we had no chance to win. I mean, we just quite literally did nothing on offense in the second half. I mean, nothing.
right.
All you had to do is put together one good drive for a touchdown in that second half, and we're talking a tied game in the fourth quarter. I mean, so unable to do it, unfortunately. I would really love to make the playoffs and have a chance at them again. I would love that on a neutral side field somehow, some way. I don't know how the bracket would have to look for that to work out, but I really think in a non-home SEC night game environment in a more 50-50 crowd, I think we have just a good enough chance as anyone in the country to beat Georgia and go on a playoff run. I think if we get in, we can win a couple games and make some noise. And I really want that for Nico more than anybody, just for the sole experience of him being a freshman and playing in games like that. It's only going to make him more prepared for the future. And I don't know. We kind of just need to whoop up the next 2 weeks somehow and hope for the best.
Got to win out.
And one of the playoff things that have been surprising to me is they evidently are holding Vandy as a quality win because on Texas's list, their 2 quality wins was Arkansas and Vanderbilt. So if you go and beat Vandy, in theory, that should help your resume. If we're going based off of how they have it right
Right.
now,
But does that mean
but
that
then
for Bama it's not a bad loss?
correct, which is kind of dumb, which is kind of the same boat we're in. Is why is Arkansas a quality win for Texas, but it's considered a bad loss for Tennessee? How does that make any relative sense? I think that's just the narrative they're pushing. I don't think necessarily the committee is saying bad loss versus good loss. That's just ESPN putting out their stupid graphics because quite literally Texas hasn't really beat anybody worth anything. I don't really want to like be that guy, but they really haven't.
No.
Their biggest test of the year was Georgia, and they got beat pretty bad. Or they got beat just about as much as we did. So not
Right.
horrible,
I
but
mean,
not great.
and they were at home, which to me it should be way worse in their favor.
And I think they got down big in that game too.
Yeah.
I think Texas made a little comeback to make it look a little bit better.
Yeah, I think Beck threw some picks in that game. That was another thing. I mean, Beck had, whenever Georgia had struggled, defenses have made Beck turn it over, and he didn't against us. So
Did Tennessee turn the ball over?
I believe we had a fumble, but I could be wrong. I don't think Nico. I'm almost positive Nico didn't throw a pick.
No, I don't think he did either.
He
He really
fumbled
didn't.
once and lost it.
Nico did.
Yep.
Was it a strip sack? It probably was a strip sack. I don't.
I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, I don't think we won the turnover battle because I don't think Georgia turned it over. I mean,
No,
arguably
they
they
had one
did, but
fumble and recovered it.
okay. Yeah,
But
I think
yeah,
college football needs to do something about the jet sweep pass. I don't think. Obviously, they called it correctly based off the rule book, but I think that's a really dumb rule that's considered a forward pass when he literally is basically handing him the ball right in his chest. Um, I
right.
don't know what they have to do about that, but that's one of those examples of the ball bouncing our way and we get rewarded with. I think wasn't that when we might have been up 10-0 when that happened or ten
Whenever,
seven.
yeah, it was in the. I mean, it was early on in the game. Uh, I can't remember which one it was because there was two of them that got called back.
Yeah. Because I
I
mean,
don't
it's
know.
moments like that. If it's a 10-0
Yeah,
or 10-7 game, and you get the turnover, I mean, you're right back in this thing to keep pushing towards that lead. So,
right.
I mean, we can't just sit here and complain about it. It's done with. We lost. Got to move
I mean,
on.
like
Got
you
to go
said, we
win.
made him punt. Like you said, we made him punt three times in a row and had 10 points to show for it. So
Yeah, you got to unfortunately somehow do more than that. It's a tough task to say
yeah,
because you
it's
just
hard to
can't
say.
expect on the road.
Right. It's hard to say whenever they punted to us three times and we have 10 points to show. Oh well, if that fumble would have went our way, then we would have had more. You know.
I mean, it's really hard to sit here and truly complain about 10 points in 3 drives because relative to the rest of the season in the first half,
No
it's
kidding. Yeah.
probably 0 points. I almost
I mean,
we pulled the reverse card of what we've done all season is we put
we did.
17 in the first and nothing in the second half. So
I could be wrong, but I really, really think that was our first opening drive touchdown since Kent State.
I don't know if that is true. We might have done it against Kentucky or somebody. I swear it was somebody recent.
Maybe. I mean, I could be wrong.
Maybe Mississippi. Oh, no, it was Mississippi State. We did it against Mississippi
Did we?
State because
Okay.
there was that fourth down conversion that got called back for us pulling somebody forward, and then it was fourth down, and we went for it and threw a touchdown to Squirrel White over the middle of the field for like a 30-yard pass. It was the first drive. 'Cause I remember vividly sitting there in the stadium, and I was like, oh my God, we just scored on the first drive. This quite literally does not happen this
Okay.
season. So,
Okay.
but before that, probably Kent State or
I mean, we went for it would have either been Kentucky or Kent State because we went 4 weeks in a row without scoring in the first half.
yeah, maybe Oklahoma. I don't know, something like that. But not a great sign. I mean, but that's why I think we thought things were going so well. I mean,
Yeah.
we did exactly what you needed to do, and that was we said one of the keys to the game was score early in that game and try to take the crowd out of it, and we did, but we just weren't able to maintain.
I agree. I mean, it's disappointing, it's frustrating, but can't dwell on it anymore. Got a game to play this week. Need
So
to
yeah,
have
we
a
can
good
move.
game this week.
Yeah, let's move on to UTEP. Senior night in Knoxville, or senior day rather. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff, I believe. Last game of the season, last home game, unless barring a miracle home playoff game. If we get in, home playoff is probably not likely at this point, unless some really crazy stuff starts happening again, which,
Yeah,
based off the season, is not impossible. It's just probably a little bit
right.
improbable. So, last time for the seniors, there's a few guys that definitely will be honored. Not a ton of seniors, as far as I'm concerned. A couple on the offensive line with Cooper Mays, Spraggins.
Campbell, I think.
Yeah, I believe he's a senior too. And then defensive side of the ball, I'm trying to think. I wonder if
Big O.
Keenan Peely obviously will be honored. Amari Thomas probably, I think, unless he has another year of
Yeah.
eligibility. No idea. It's so hard to tell these days. It really is. And even if they
What
go
about
through
Kit?
the senior day things, some of them can come back every year. That's kind of how it feels like now.
Oh, you got Brew. I think
Brew, that'll be a good
yeah,
one.
Brew's a big one. Kitzelman, but he's only been there for a year.
Yeah. Because then you have some of the guys that are like juniors who probably are going pro that won't
I
be
see.
honored. So, like,
Yeah,
might see the last of Dylan Sampson in Neyland Stadium, which, speaking of that, I think he got listed as not in the top 10, according to Mel Kiper, as running backs in this next year's draft.
that's
And
crazy to me.
if Mel Kiper is correct, that is a very likely sign that Sampson might be returning to Knoxville next year, which,
That'd be sick.
for the sake of his pro career, that sucks. However, for the sake of the Vols, that would be really awesome. That would be really awesome.
What about
And I'm sure
McCoy?
he get
Is he eligible to go pro or likely to go pro?
Jermod McCoy. No, he is a sophomore.
Sweet. That's
So we
awesome.
get him back. Arion Carter will be back next year. I think he's a sophomore. You got some big defensive guys. I mean, James Pierce is gone, obviously.
Yeah, but he's only a
I think
junior,
there's a
right?
couple other guys in the secondary that should be returning. I'm trying to think of names. Ricky Gibson's young. Turrentine is probably, I don't know how old he is.
He's been on the team for a while.
Yeah,
Jacoby Thomas.
might be. I know he transferred in. I don't know if he has another year. Like we said, it honestly is the most confusing thing now because between COVID and extra eligibility to begin with, you don't know if guys are playing their fifth year, sixth year, seventh year. In some cases, like that one Miami guy, like 10th year, or Cam Rising, eighth year, or whatever it is. There's
Right.
just it's so hard to know.
It
Um,
is.
but yeah, keys to the UTEP game I think are probably pretty similar to uh, Kent State and UTC. Number one, win. Number two, now we definitely need to beat them by a lot just to make sure there's not even a doubt in the committee's mind.
Right.
And number three, most important, is get up early and get the starters out of this game. The last thing we need is a couple games to go our way as far as the rest of the country, and then Nico or Samson get banged up in this game, and the committee is like,
Mm, yeah.
they're not the same without Nico. They're not the same without Dylan Sampson. So that's the last thing we need. Ideally, you do what you did against Kent State and score like 30 in the first quarter and 60 at halftime, and then it's the Gaston Moore show. Oh, Gaston is someone that will be honored on senior day, I'm sure. So
Yeah. He'll probably.
he's like a fifth or sixth year.
I think he's gonna roll into a coaching position right after he graduates.
I wouldn't be shocked. Either that, or maybe he's got eyes on like the UFL or CFL or something, and just go tear it up. And I'd be so here for it.
That'd be cool.
Um,
But
but
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, UTEP has won 2 games. They are coming off a win against Kennesaw State. I'm not worried about losing. Knock on wood, I guess. But you need to win big. Don't let them hang around. Don't let them put up a bunch of points. Like, do what you're supposed to do. If it's less than, I don't know what we need to cover. I think it was like 41.5 or something. You need to cover.
yeah, 41. If you cover, everybody's happy. I think Dylan Sampson is like 230 something yards away from all time or single season rushing record yards. So hopefully, I mean, hell, maybe he goes and gets it this game. That'd be fun. Like a
That would be
240-yard day for Sampson. If not, I would like for him to at least get at least half of that, so we can break it in the Vandy game. Just
that'd be sick.
because Sampson's having an all-time year, and I want him to break every single season record possible. Just because, I mean, he deserves it.
He deserves it.
He's put the team on his back multiple times this year, and
Absolutely.
if this is the last hoorah for him, I hope he goes out with a bang and rewrites the Tennessee record books. But other than that, not much to say about UTEP. I think they're ranked one of the worst teams in college football. They just recently picked up their first win in over a calendar year a few weeks ago, and now I guess they beat Kennesaw, who they are a struggling program. I think they just fired their coach, actually. And let's not let the UTEP Miners do any funny business in Knoxville on Saturday.
Right. Exactly. Go out.
Don't ruin Jamie's birthday. Don't ruin Jamie's birthday.
Don't ruin my birthday. Come on, guys. Alrighty. So you want to any game? I guess we can talk about week 12 and then get into week 13.
Week 12. I mean, just going off the top of my head, I mean, we don't have to go down a crazy list of anything. There wasn't a ton of movement. Most notably, there was a few good games. Missouri, South Carolina, that was this past weekend, right? That was a good game.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina once again winning. And I was just saying, South Carolina.
Oh yeah,
we've talked about it before. They were really close to being a playoff team this year. Believe it or not,
Sellers is a really good quarterback,
and he's a freshman, so he's gonna be someone that you see in the league for the next couple years. South Carolina is probably trending upward right now. I hate to say it. I'm not exactly a believer in Beamer, but he kind of has at least the team that he has this year is playing hard for him, and which now we're kind of seeing guys truly in his system, because he's been there for a few years now. So everyone that's there is because of him. So I'm sure he recruits certain people that like his vibe. I'm not someone who personally likes his vibe, but it's not my problem to deal with. So another good win for South Carolina. What else was last week? BYU going down first time this season to Kansas. Yeah, I had no idea about. I was so locked into the Tennessee game. I woke up the next morning and then realized that BYU actually lost to Kansas, and I was every little bit of vol depression I had that morning, a little bit went away when I realized, well, that was actually a massive win for Kansas to help us out.
Which I guess if BYU goes and wins the Big 12, it didn't really help us out all that much, but.
Well, what it does is it guarantees that there's probably only going to be one Big 12 team in. Because if BYU was to go undefeated and lose to Colorado in the championship or whoever, they'd probably both get in. Yeah. Right. So that essentially eliminated the 2 Big 12 teams, which there's actually a possibility that we get 0 Big 12 teams, which is a crazy, crazy thing. I know. I had the same face. But the rules are the top 5 conference champions. There's nothing that says the Power 4 all get in. Now, if Army goes and beats Navy or and Notre Dame, and they go win the American, and they're undefeated, technically they'd be a stronger conference champion than a 2-loss or 1-loss Colorado / BYU / Arizona State, which
And
is
then Boise, you need Boise too, then though.
Boise as well. I mean, they're undefeated and they're going to go win their conference. So there
That'd
is a
be
real
crazy.
possibility. I don't think it will happen. I don't know if Army's going to take down Notre Dame this weekend. I mean, it's not impossible. If they do, they probably deserve it just because they played somebody worth a damn and won. But
That'd be nuts.
when somebody was talking about that on TV the other day, I was like, my mind just got blown because I've had this whole perception of the power forwards basically in. Because how in the world could a power forward conference champion be worse than 2 other conferences below that?
Yeah.
But we've had a
Big
crazy
12.
year.
Hmm. Yeah, other than that, though, in week 12, I guess the only other game to talk about is the Florida LSU game. I mean, I didn't watch too much of it. You did. I'll let you take most of the reins on this. I know LSU lost on the road.
Um, yeah, that one was in the swamp. I think we kind of talked about it last week that we thought that Florida has a good chance in that game, and they'd had more than a chance. They won it.
Right.
Lagway looked good because that's what we were talking about. Is if Lagway was playing, I believe Florida could win, and he played, and he wasn't even fully healthy, and he still looked pretty solid out there. I think he and Sellers are going to be problems, obviously, and Nico going forward in this conference. Arch Manning's in that conversation too because eventually it'll be his team. Um, yeah, exciting for young quarterbacks in the SEC. I'm sure, like we talked about this before, Ole Miss will probably have somebody. Before we know it, I don't know who the backup or who's going to be Bama's quarterback going forward, but it's going to be somebody worth. I mean, it's Alabama, so
Right.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, Florida's looked better each week. It was kind of what we've been talking about, and they have another big
Napier's
one.
saving
And
his job.
yeah. I mean, they already come out and said that Napier is not being fired or anything like that, and it's his team next year. But Tennessee needs an absolute favor by Florida this weekend, and I will never, ever, ever say go Gators, but this weekend it's go Gators. We need them to, and it's probably going to be an Avatar moment when we need them the most. They're going to vanish, and they're probably going to get smacked. But
Yeah, that would
we'll
happen.
get to that here in a second.
They'd sell just to screw us over.
Yeah, they would. They would. I don't know. I mean, not a super crazy weekend of college football.
This week or last week?
Last week, this upcoming week, we got some games, but
We do.
I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
what else went down in week 12. I was so just focused on on our game all day.
Uh,
I didn't even.
Kansas State lost. A ranked Kansas State lost to an unranked Arizona State, which we'll get into more this week. Arizona State
Right.
plays BYU.
Arizona State's
Boston.
not dead technically.
No, they're not. BC lost to SMU, I believe. SMU continues to run the table in ACC play as of now. So
Yeah, the ACC is going to come down to the wire too. All these conferences really are.
right, which once again, could potentially screw us over because I don't know if we have a chance to get in the SEC championship anymore.
We do not, but actually, that does not screw us over. That probably benefits us. So,
Right, but what I was saying is these like undefeated or these undefeated teams go and lose in their conference championship. That could hurt us.
um,
Like Clemson
that
beating SMU. SMU probably still gets in.
Not true. They're currently ranked behind us already. So you don't need them to fall out. They would actually. There's no way they would jump in after losing a game like that.
That's true.
Uh, Miami, if they lose again, they're probably kicked out. The ACC probably only gets one team in. It's probably going to be the conference champion winner. Because if Clemson goes and beats Miami or SMU beats Miami, SMU probably gets in and Miami falls out. That's just the nature of what we're at right now. Just because resume and strength of schedule and RPI is things, or FPI, whatever they call it, that's where we're starting to get at is a 2-loss Tennessee a stronger team because of their strength of schedule. I think is 18th in the country versus an Indiana. If they go and get smacked by Ohio State this weekend, their strength of schedule is 106th, I believe, in the country out of 133. You played one game and lost it, and you beat a bunch of scrubs. Why are you better than a team that has competed with some of the best teams in the country week in and week out? But
Right.
once again, I don't make the decisions. So
on that, I think that's a good segue to get into Week 13. Started off with Indiana, Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to
just a noon game.
them. Yeah.
Another Big 10 noon classic. You have the 2 top 5 teams going against each other at noon, just because that conference is stupid. But yeah, we both are in agreement here. I think Ohio State absolutely destroys Indiana.
It's the end of the Cinderella run.
Yeah, the slipper's not going to fit this weekend, I don't think. A crazy thing actually came out this week saying that, which might end up biting Indiana in the ass, is they were supposed to play Louisville this year, and they opted to play Western Illinois instead. Which,
interesting.
Your strength of schedule would have increased a ton if you went and beat Louisville instead of Western Illinois. So I think that's going to be something they end up regretting. But going into this year, Indiana has never won games like this many games, so they're not used to beating the mid-tier, the bottom-tier Big Ten teams like they have.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it might not be pretty. It's a Big Ten noon game, but I think Ohio State's going to win and win big. We need them to win and win big. It would look like I don't think Ohio State would drop behind us if they lost.
No,
because it would be a top 5 loss.
All of a sudden they're going to treat Indiana like a powerhouse, and they're going to be like, that's a good loss for Ohio State, because then technically their only losses would be to number 1 Oregon and top 5 Indiana, and they'd play it off like those aren't bad losses, even though.
So we need Ohio State to wax that ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also a part of me, maybe it's the BVS kicking in. Would Ohio State potentially, if they had the opportunity to not run up the score in the fourth quarter, would they get conservative to allow an Indiana team to stay relevant instead of letting another SEC team come into the field? Because I think Ohio State knows they'd much rather play Indiana in a playoff game than a Tennessee, Ole Miss, Georgia, Bama, and so on.
I mean, that would be a big brain move.
Maybe. I don't know if Ryan Day has that big of a brain, to be honest, but you can never know.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I really hate that was one of the things that popped in my head. I'm like, that's how you know we've been absolutely tortured as a fan base over the years, because I was like, wait a second. What if Ryan Day doesn't run up the score? Not saying that will happen. I'm sure they would love to bury Indiana into conference opponent, but You never know. And if it ends up happening where they're up 10 or up 14 and they have the ball and they choose to like knee out the game or kick a field goal instead of being aggressive, whatever it is, we're going to come back on next weekend and say I told y'all so, because I don't know. I just have a weird feeling. It's actually the first leg of our parlay, which we both took at -10. I think they should be able to handle that very easily.
Easily. Yeah.
And then next game, if we want to talk about, let's see, Florida Ole Miss. It's another noon
Again,
game.
part of another leg of our parlay.
We took Florida plus 11 in this. I am feeling pretty confident about the Florida Gators for whatever reason. One of them, the biggest reason is Lagway. I think he's been playing good football recently. And honestly, I think Florida's season might be a little bit different if they started him from week 1 instead of Graham Mertz. But hindsight's 2020. Graham Mertz played pretty solid last year, so it's kind of hard to just like dump him for a freshman. It's a similar to Joe Milton and Nico kind of situation last year, except for we just never really got to see Nico.
Right.
It would have been like if Joe Milton got hurt and Nico started balling out the rest of the year. We would have been like, man, I wish Nico just played the whole season. But what are you going to do? I think Florida can win this game. I think they do win this game. It's in the swamp. It's a noon game. I just feel like Ole Miss is due for a choke job here, and they're kind of catching Florida at the wrong time. I think they were kind of hoping Florida would be dead at this point in the season, but they actually are just continuing to improve. So I don't know. Even if they don't win, I think they cover, and that's why we took plus 11.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little skeptical on it at first, but I'm sold on it now. I think Florida can get it done, at least to the point of covering. Next game that is also in our – we have three of our 4 legs. Actually, our entire parlay is going to be over by the time after Tennessee, and Tennessee plays at 1.
That's kind of crazy.
So, yeah, early slate parlay today. Feel free to maybe we'll have some winnings to put on the rest of the week. Like, hey, maybe we'll have to cook something up midday Saturday and post it out there.
I wouldn't hate that. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the later slate so we can figure out that too. But
third game, you got NC, North Carolina at Boston College. North Carolina's favored by 2.5 points. I don't know why. I haven't watched much North Carolina. I know they got 70 hung on their head by James Madison earlier in the year. And as they're just waiting on basketball season at this point. Boston College, I think, is going to win at home, at least cover a 2.5, not lose by, I don't know. I think they're going to win.
I think this is a tough game. North Carolina, I think, has gotten better as the season has gone on. You can definitely argue that BC's maybe gotten worse as the season gone on, but they've gotten back in the winning column recently. I think the big difference in this is it's in Boston College.
Right.
And I don't know what the weather's supposed to be there this Saturday, but I know
Cold.
everywhere else in the Northeast is getting hammered with snow right now.
It was snowing in Knoxville tonight. It snowed in Knoxville tonight. Just want to throw that out there.
I'm in Knoxville, and I don't know if that's true. So I don't know where your sources are, but
the weather app.
The weather app might be lying. Maybe closer to the mountains, but we are not a weather podcast. That's a spin-off series coming soon. Just kidding. No, it's not. Yeah. But regardless, I think weather could have an impact in this game, and running the ball would probably be a factor. So I would expect Castellanos to probably use his legs pretty heavily, make some guys miss in that colder weather, and just kind of beat them down. And I really like taking these small underdogs at home this season. It seems to be like
Pretty
a
solid.
pretty effective way of betting, just because it's not like they're 20-point dogs at home. That's a totally different
Right.
situation. It's just 2.5. I mean, you could argue it could just as easily say that they're favored by 2.5, but we're taking them. Um, it is kind of wild that we accidentally chose everything in the early slate. I didn't even realize we did that.
Me
But
neither. Hey, I don't mind it though. Getting into the midday 3:30, couple games that may get interesting, may not. You got Kentucky at Texas. Maybe Kentucky can do us a big favor. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But maybe if they could at
that'd
least
be
keep it close or something.
that'd be a wild situation if Kentucky beat Texas and Ole Miss in the same season, but couldn't beat Vanderbilt or like anybody else. That'd be a a very confusing
Yeah,
season.
it would be. Um, and then two Big 12 matchups you have back to back. You got 14 BYU at number 21 Arizona State. Arizona State's got a chance to make things real interesting over there. And then number 16 Colorado at Kansas. So two teams coming off a win against one team coming off a loss. I mean, Colorado's coming off a big win, but I don't know. You could see some underdogs hit in that game. I think Arizona State's technically favored. Yeah, they're favored at home by 3. So,
They are, and honestly, I don't disagree with it. And the reason why, because we originally were going to take BYU +3 on our parlay of the week,
mhm,
but I got hesitant for one because this is at Arizona State. If this was at BYU, I would like BYU +3, just the same way I like Boston College at
right.
+2.5 at home. But this is at Arizona State. I think BYU has gotten a little lucky lately, kind of squeaking out some wins, and they ended up getting beat last week to a team they should not have. And Arizona State is kind of playing pretty solid football this year. I think, other than their kicking unit, wasn't it Arizona State that like said they were going to have open tryouts for kicker, and the coach went like a whole
It
rant,
might that may have been them. I don't remember, but
which
I know what you're
is
talking about.
hysterical. But if they win, I believe that puts them at the moment into the top two teams in the Big 12 for the Big 12 championship. And then you start talking about Kansas and Colorado, correct?
Mhm.
So I also think that Kansas might win again this week. I know Colorado's played pretty good, despite all the things I've said about them earlier this season. So I'll eat my words a little bit on that. But Kansas somehow over the last few weeks has played like the way we thought they could have gone into this year. We gotten some better games out of Jalen Daniels, not Jaden, but Jalen Daniels. And
Not to be
I don't know. I mean,
confused.
are they good enough to beat two of the best teams in the Big 12 in back-to-back weeks? I don't know. But don't call it impossible. What's the spread on that one?
Colorado by 3.
And this is at Kansas?
Mhm.
Hmm. That's another one that might take straight, just Kansas +3 at home. But
I agree. I probably will
other
actually,
than that,
especially if our
is
parlay
there any
hits.
yeah, is there any games other than that in the midday slate that's worth anything?
Mm, when does No, not in midday that I can see.
Does Army and Notre Dame play at night?
They're 7 o'clock on or on ABC.
Might
Wait,
actually be able
no,
to tune
I
into
read I
that.
read that I read that wrong. Oklahoma and Alabama is on ABC.
Can
Army and
Oklahoma also do Tennessee a big favor?
That'd be huge. That'd be really huge.
Oklahoma, I
'Cause
mean,
it's stupid that
Oklahoma.
Alabama's ahead of us.
Oklahoma is due big time for a true good SEC win. They haven't had one yet this season. Do I think it happens this weekend? Probably not. But a night game in Norman is not an easy accomplishment. And maybe, just maybe, Milrow and company fall flat on their face. And if they do, I mean,
I'll
that would
take it.
be an awesome thing for Tennessee. Definitely puts us right back in. But I don't think it happens. But I'll probably tune in just because Tennessee plays UTEP this week and it's at 1 p.m. So I can actually probably sit there and watch other games.
Right. What I was correcting myself on is Notre Dame Army is on at 7 o'clock on NBC and Peacock, not ABC.
About to say, I'm
So
pretty sure Notre Dame always is on NBC, but
yeah. So
is that in South Bend or is that at Army?
it's in Yankee Stadium.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Site. We got
It's
a
in
neutral
Yankee
site
Stadium.
matchup, and it's definitely a better matchup than they could have probably ever anticipated going into the season.
Right. When they schedule this game.
Also, once again, Northeast equals very, very cold this weekend.
Yeah, no kidding.
Uh, I mean, if Notre Dame goes down, also huge for Tennessee. Especially
Right.
if Army does the funny thing and beat Notre Dame and then lose to Navy, so we don't even have to worry about our. I mean, there is so much. There is so much that can happen in these next 2 weeks, and
There
we've been
really
saying that
is.
all season long. But man, it has been everything other than cookie cutter of a season. That I mean, gosh, you got that one. What else we got on
So,
the night slate?
you got Boise at Wyoming. Uh, just throwing out the weekly Ashton Genty shout out.
I saw
Um,
a comparison of his stats to the past few running back Heisman winners through week 10 weeks. And he blows all their stats away by a ton. So
yeah, but who was the last running back Heisman winner? Henry?
I think the last few, it was like Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram. Did Adrian Peterson win one?
Maybe.
I don't think he did, but there
Reggie.
was a couple other guys in there. Reggie Bush
Reggie
was on
won one.
there, and then there was somebody from like the 80s.
Probably like Barry Sanders or something. But uh
It wasn't him. It was somebody else.
okay. Besides that, you have A&M at Auburn. That's a road game. I mean, it wouldn't help Tennessee if they lost because they're still ranked behind us. But
It would, in a sense, that if they were to lose to Auburn and then somehow go beat Texas next week at home,
yeah, that'd be nice.
then you don't have to worry about A&M getting in if they beat Texas. It'd be more just like taking Texas out of the equation more than
Right.
anything.
So a little bit off topic, a little bit of backtracking. Did we ever figure out what happens with the Army Navy game because it's technically after the
It's
selection?
not relevant to the playoffs technically. So,
Yeah. So Army could rest whoever they wanted. I mean, I'm sure they won't just because like a pride thing, but
oh, that is their biggest game of the season. They'd
right.
rather care about that than a national championship, and that's a real fact. That's not
Yeah.
any discredit. That's just there's so much pageantry and history and bragging rights alone in that game that they would not even think about doing that. Now, if it
Hmm.
was any other team, yeah, you probably would consider not. Can you just forfeit? I mean, geez, there'd be no point of playing, to be honest. But which going forward, I don't know if they're going to have to change selections Sunday to
I mean,
the
they had to have
following.
thought
If
about this, right?
they
They
did, but
probably
they
weren't
must
thinking
have just
about,
never.
probably wouldn't have thought
There's
about
just
Army
no
being that good.
right. There's just no way they created a scenario in their heads where this was even possible, and it still very well could not be. If they lose to Notre Dame, this is all worth nothing. You know.
Right. But yeah, back on track. Besides that, you have Iowa State at Utah, Big 12 night game. Hoorah. And then Vanderbilt at LSU. I mean, those are the only two other games that I think are really worth even touching on. Vandy and LSU is
Yeah,
unranked versus unranked. No implications at this point.
I would not want to play a Vanderbilt team next weekend that just went into Death Valley and won. However, uh,
No. Would it look like a
not
better
that
win?
LSU
Yes.
LSU they've had a last few weeks of not fun. Between getting dismantled by Alabama, losing to Florida, choking against A&M, and then today they just lost the number one quarterback and number one player in the country. He just Bryce Underwood, I think his name is. He decommitted or flipped his recruitment from LSU to Michigan. I
Mm.
think it was reported that Michigan threw like $11 million at him. Apparently,
Oh,
Dave Portnoy from Barstool might have a little bit a factor in that. Is the rumors just because he's got a lot of money to throw around. Also, Connor Stallions, the guy last year who literally cheated for Michigan. He randomly joined Bryce Underwood's high school football team as a coach 3 weeks ago as an assistant. Didn't know you could just do that in the middle of the year, but he did, and that doesn't look fishy at all. But he pulled it off somehow, and
especially not with his track record.
yeah, that doesn't look fishy. I guess there's no rules against tampering when they're not even in college yet. But I mean, I guess Michigan has another quarterback coming in and might be able to help that program get back to where it was last year.
Yeah, maybe. That sucks for LSU. I'd be so mad. But yeah,
Yeah,
if
which I'm
Vanderbilt
honestly
wins, what were you saying?
I'm a little surprised that LSU was able to get outbid. Like there's no way that LSU
Eh,
doesn't have the money to pull that off,
Mardi Gras
and
coming up.
then
They're
if
saving up.
so true, and they're probably thinking about paying out that Brian Kelly buyout because they know that's probably coming in the next year or two because they're gonna have to fire him. That's a good point. They probably don't have money for that. But if I
Yeah,
had the choice
they
between
got.
to play at Death Valley in the SEC at night or Michigan in the big cold Big Ten, yeah, no thanks. I'm taking Louisiana, but
Right, me too, probably. Yeah,
do we want to wrap up and just go over the parlay one more time and
let's do it.
call it a show?
Let's do it.
Which fun fact after this, I know I'm going to be watching the Tennessee basketball game in where are they, the Bahamas?
Mm-hmm.
Which I know the game tip-off got delayed because the game before it went to 2 overtimes. So
The announcers
hasn't
at Tennessee have been talking about that for so long. I think one of them's
of
going
what
to the Bahamas or something. The Bahamas way
I'm
too big
sure
for here.
that's a nice little trip. Alrighty, so week
Well,
13 parlay of the week. We've been awful this week or this year. So don't trust any of our advice, but we're due to hit. And this one doesn't seem as crazy as some other ones. We obviously have Ohio State -10 at home versus the overrated Hoosiers. I think they win by a few scores, so 10 felt like an easy play. Then we have Florida at home against Ole Miss to ruin Ole Miss's season. They can go out and win this game. If not, if they could at least cover by 11, it'd be much appreciated. And then we have Boston College at home, money line. They're like 2.5-point dogs. We think that between the weather up in the Northeast this weekend and so on, we think that they can win this one at home. North Carolina hasn't played perfect this year. And then we have Tennessee, our beloved Vols, getting back in the win column and doing so in big enough fashion to impress the committee and win by 41 or more. Those four picks play out to be 14 plus 1404 odds.
yes, sir.
So 10 would win you about 140. 100
Yep.
wins you a lot more than that. But
A lot more.
I think that's all for episode 21. Unless you have anything else you'd like to mention.
No, that's all. I've tinkered with the thought of taking that uh taking that parlay of like everything that Tennessee does not want to happen, and then you're essentially I'm gonna put $5 on this 10 leg parlay of all the teams that we don't want to win. If it hits, then I make a lot of money. If it doesn't hit, then I spent $5 on Tennessee getting into the playoffs. But of course,
I mean,
what
yeah,
would probably happen is it doesn't hit, and then Tennessee loses to UTEP or something.
don't start with that. We just had a nice positive show, Jamie. We don't need none of that. None of that. Don't put that evil juju in the air. Everything's gonna be fine. The Vols are fine. The Vols are back. We're gonna take care of business next 2 weeks. We're gonna get in the playoffs and we're gonna make a run, and it's gonna be awesome.
Right.
And we're not delusional just yet, just a little. But
That's right.
I think that is all for tonight. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. You can see our clips there, our full episode video on YouTube, our audio on Spotify, obviously. And we'll be back next week talking the Vandy game and hopefully some positive news of other teams losing and Vols playoffs hopes and all that fun stuff. So
Yes,
we'll
sir.
see you next week.
All right. Have a good one.